Great line from these crews. Julia Rodrigue and Raquel Bennett leading the way over there in lanes 5 and 6. Coming in, can't quite see them in our eyesight yet, so they're probably in that first 1K still of the last heat of the women's single.
It looks to me about
morning.
500 meters in or so
Right.
from where they are. And it looks like we're getting an image from the finish line. Here we are back into some drones. St. Thomas there. So that's Julia. Again, very nice sort of loping, those hands getting away, but very nice rhythm going.
Yeah, and again, this is an interesting dynamic starting to form here. Before the last 2 heats, we've had pretty much one standout sculler in each of the heats kind of run away with this event, but here we have 2 scullers kind of battling it out, pushing each other for the lead and starting to create a pretty big gap over the rest of the field. So again, top 4 crews moving on to the semifinals. I
see some of those. So that's a great race going there between the lead 2. We think that is
that's Miss Rodrigue out of St. Thomas, and this is a very
and
good
Raquel
race
Bennett out of Long Beach State.
And yeah, they've been going back and forth a little bit. Initially, Miss Rodrigue had about a half-length lead, and it's kind of been closing and opening it up every now and then. So it looks like another push by, and there she is. That's Miss Rodrigue out of St. Thomas, currently in the lead. Looks like she's trying to open up another gap, and we'll see if Miss Bennett can try to counter that and maybe overtake her. And as they approach the last 500, it is the St. Thomas sculler, Miss Rodrigue, and there she goes. She's about to break open water. Let's see if she can do it. Breaking open water is such a confidence booster for
well, you know, one of my rules of racing is never sit on a bow ball. In other words, if you're going to break, and I think we have a race coming back. I think that Julia is sitting there going, yeah, not so much. You know, we're gonna come and do this, and there's definitely some interest out of Julia from St. Thomas there about getting in front, because you can just see it on the oar. And now a response from Raquel. This is a great little race going. You're only seeing it from up top, but where we're seeing it next to each other, they're bow ball to bow ball, and they're deciding to have some fun with this and see who's going to go. It's just a great race there. Definitely Raquel Bennett about a third of a boat up right now on Julia Rodrigue. And both of them rowing internally. I think Raquel's a little bit more jumpy, chippy, trying to get in there, but Raquel just staying nice and long and saying, that's fine. You want to go up? I'll make you go up. And that means she has another gear or two maybe to go into.
I think as you said that, she just took another gear, and she started to take a little bit more length now over Miss Bennett out of Long Beach State. There's a great shot again of the battle happening. It's been back and forth this whole race, and we'll see who is going to take the spoils out of this third heat in the women's single as they start to approach the last 300 meters.
I mean, neither of them is giving up. I mean, just look at that right there. They're so close there as they come in. And now we're starting to see a little bit of a sprint. Again, I think often just for pride at this point. And there is a slight advantage to getting up there. But, you know, one of them will go into one semifinal and one of them will go into the other. And they'll probably come back into the A final and see each other again there.
And you have to give props to Miss Bennett, the current second place rower. You know, she's been very, very aware of where she's been relative to the
whole time. She knows exactly where she is.
Even if she starts to pull away, you know, she doesn't give up, and she has the mental fortitude to kind of come back. And
but
that's a really
it looks to me though like her rowing is a little more internal. That's why it was staying long, and she's a couple of beats under, and you know, she may just be sitting there going, that's fine, you want to take this, take it, and I'll see you later. But trying to spend, in some ways, you know, it's not the physical energy that you have to worry about in these heats, it's the emotional energy. You know, you can only really sort of go into that well a couple of times. This sort of old school vision of, you know, the huge pump up speech and athletes going out and, you know, Rudy winning the game for Notre Dame and everyone's on this whole emotional high. You can't do that all the time.
Yeah, again, another runaway leader at the moment here in this second semifinal. This is, like you said, Julia Rodrigue out of St. Thomas, one of the programs with a lot of smaller boats. So very, very strong in the sculling contingent out of St. Thomas. You said that's Minnesota, right?
Minnesota, yeah. We'll see from the drone in just a moment where those crews are in contention. Until then, we're watching the wonderful stroke from Julia Rodrigue. Just long, strong,
stroke.
Locked in. Beautiful water here at Mountain Lake. You can see as those oars place in. Not too much depth. This is something I actually have to talk to my single scullers a lot about, and all my scullers is they want to enforce this power on the stroke to move this hull, and a lot of times they put the oars in way too deep, right? When really it's all rigged up for just the blade to go in. You know, some coaching styles out of the western side of New York is maybe not even the whole blade goes in at main entry, because as you push, it's going to sink in a little bit deeper, and at a certain point, you're not actually propelling or leveraging the hull to the bow. Instead, you're sinking the oars in so deep, kind of getting stuck halfway through, and it'll feel that way. It'll feel really heavy, and you won't be getting the result from your shell.
And
we are actually looking at the grand final of the women's single, which is what I was pausing there for a second about.
Yeah,
'cause I see the purple from St. Thomas, Julia Rodrigue, who set a great time on the course, and Raquel Bennett from Long Beach State. So sorry about that. If you were waiting for this, here we are. Sophia Whitman from Northwestern State is in lane 1. Sophia Segura from Virginia Rowing Association is lane 2. Former coxswain for the Wahoos, Julia Rodrigue from St. Thomas out of Minnesota, is up in the lead right now, followed by Raquel Bennett, followed by Kaylani Doring from Colorado State, and Abigail Danielle was the one who's having a little bit of trouble a little bit earlier. So this is the grand final. This is it. This is for medals. Julia Rodrigue has put down great pacing in all races she's put on the course so far this weekend, and that is the same case here. She's keeping Raquel Bennett slightly in her sights, but this is a very internal race. I would compare it more to marathon running, where you have so much you need to worry about for yourself. You don't need to strategize too closely until the very end of the race about what the other people are doing around you. You just need to set base speed and attack, and she's now opened water on Raquel Bennett out of Long Beach State.
Yeah, this is for national championship and medals on the line here with the A final now. And did you mention that Rodrigue was a former coxswain?
That's the lane 2 from Virginia.
Oh, Segura.
Sophia Segura.
Gotcha. Still impressive nonetheless for the singles, a very, very deep event. And here we have the pleasure of seeing such a large entry pool year in and year out in the singles. Especially,
it's only
really great to
expanded.
see.
We're lucky to see that we have 3-4 levels of finals in the single on the men's and the women's side. Raquel Bennett putting down a really commanding pace, trying to hold herself within a close margin of Julia Rodrigue in case as she picks up a sprint, she can close in on that a little bit. Kaylani Doring also asserting herself way ahead of the second, third of the pack there. I believe Sophia Segura out of Virginia slightly ahead of Sophia Whitman out of Northwestern State. Abigail Danielle a little bit further back. She was having some steering trouble earlier in the race. Hopefully that doesn't plague her all the way through.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see Rodrigue and Bennett as they come into the second half of this race. Now, Rodrigue and Bennett were the two winners of their respective semifinals, and both of them won by pretty comfortable margins here. So this is the first time they're going to be seeing pretty close competition with one another. And, yeah, it looks like Rodrigue is currently taking a little bit of an open water, now about half a length of an open water margin. She's putting down a middle move to try and secure her title of national champion.
So yeah, and they've done the same to the rest of the field, but not so much to each other. The margins here is going to be really hard for Raquel Bennett to work her way back up and overlapping with Julia, but it's still a remarkable push and press out and away. They're a little bit past the 1,000 meter mark, coming up to our line of sight. The rowing looks great, calm water, so you can see some technical expertise. This rower from St. Thomas, I've seen a lot of small boat specialty out of actually both these clubs, but specifically St. Thomas and some of the small sculls. Really long. She has this great bow-loaded shell, I think a carbon fiber rigger. So a lot of that force is sending its way into the bow on every stroke she has.
As the buoys change red, that signifies the last 250 meters between separating Rodrigue and a national championship. If Bennett needs to do anything, if Bennett wants to do anything to challenge for a national championship, she needs to do it now because Rodrigue continues to have an open water advantage, and it's coming down to the line now.
Yep, you can see the tower in the background. They're keeping an eye on them. They'll take these official times, but I think Rodrigue, she responded with her own move, and it's now about 1.5 sets of buoys, maybe 2 sets of buoys worth of distance between their two crews, and the sprint comes, trying to notch the fastest time they can to secure their medals. First medals for their clubs to take home all weekend. St. Thomas just shy of first place.
The single scullers notorious for being one of the mentally and physically hardest, most difficult boat classes to row, and Rodrigue out of St. Thomas is going to be the top of them all. She wins the national championship here at the ACRA National Championships in the women's single. Raquel Bennett, very good fight to hold on to silver, and the fight for bronze is not over yet.
Not over yet. Congratulations to the first 2 crews. Great closing speed there from Raquel Bennett. Well rowed. And it's a charge. It's going to be come right down to the wire, and I think Keilani is going to hold on to that bronze spot. Great row, great pickup in speed from Sophia, and great work closing it out from Sophia Whitman from Northwestern State.